Hi everyone, I am Chris from Simply Classic, and we're going to bring you another video today of an older but a good Simply Classic pattern. So we're going to look at the Compton today. And the Compton is really a unique pattern. It's kind of sneaky, for lack of another word. It looks super slim. If you look here on the side, it's really kind of a slim bag, right? It's kind of got a girlish figure. She's not huge. I mean, she's tall, but she doesn't look super big, right? But when you open her up, oh my gosh, there's so much room in this bag. I'm going to unzip it so you can see. I mean, you've got 3 different sections here. You got one large section, you've got this interior section, you have another large section on the other side, and then you have pockets in here galore. So I've got a slip pocket on this side. On the inside, I have a slip pocket and a zipper pocket in here. Kind of hard to show. In this section here. And then in this section, I have another zipper pocket and slip pocket. So there's pockets everywhere. It opens up really wide. You can fit all kinds of stuff in this bag. Now, the bag was designed for a friend of mine who I had made her a bag, and she brought it back to me and she said, I can't use this bag, it doesn't have enough pockets, we need more pockets. So I specifically designed this bag for her, and that's why it's called the Compton, because that is her maiden name. So we are going to be doing out of faux. We do have these kits available. This is leather, this is Italian leather. It is absolutely gorgeous. I love this kit, it is just beautiful. You can do it all in one fabric, kind of like what I have here. The leather here is the same as the leather in the front. Or you can do it with a contrast, kind of like this one here, where you have the black gusset, okay? Now, this bag is rated intermediate to advanced, but don't let that fool you, don't let that scare you. The reason why is because of the gusset can be a little bit tricky, and it has binding. And I know, oh, you're like, no binding. But the great thing about having a bag that's finished with binding is that the lining just lays so good. There is no baggy linings in bags that have binding finishes. Now, in this bag, the binding is not here, and it's not in the other main section here. The binding is in this middle section. So let me unzip it for you again. Okay, it's just in the middle section. And the binding only runs from here, like around to this side, and then from here around to this side. So there's no binding up here by the zipper at all, okay? There's curves, you know, we've got some interesting curves in the bag, okay? That also kind of lends to it being an intermediate to advanced. But again, if you've been making bags for a while, you want to try your hand at something new, different, something that's going to challenge you, the Compton is definitely the pattern for you. So we're going to go through, and I've actually done a lot of the bag already, but we are going to go through the gusset, the construction of the gusset, the construction of the whole, like putting the bag together, and then also putting the binding on. So we're going to go over what pieces are completed, what pieces we're going to do, and we're going to get started right now. So before I get started, let's go over the pieces that I've already completed. We have 2 little tabs, and this is just a piece that you fold into the center and you top stitch each side. So I've got those 2 tabs done. I also have the handles done, okay? You've seen me do that a bunch of times before. I have the key fob done. I have one of the exterior panels done, and we're going to use this, this geometric pattern to do it. It is a very lightweight faux, and it really is going to do well for this bag because it is so lightweight. On the back, I'm using the solid black as an accent, and then we're using a natural linen lining. Just the color, I think the color is natural. Just matches really great. So I've got one side done. We're going to do the other side together. I'm going to show you how that's done. I have all of my lining pieces completed. So you've seen me put in slip pockets before. So we have two lining pieces like this one here, and then the other one is a zipper pocket. And again, you've seen me put a zipper pocket in before. You know how we do that. The other, there's actually like 4 lining pieces here. The other one is, this is like a little sunglasses pocket, and then another slip pocket. And this particular, you notice that the interior of the bag, inside where the zipper is, doesn't have any upper lining, but the outside of the bag where you open up and you have those 2 sections on either side, they both have upper lining. So this is the upper lining on one side, and then the upper lining on the other side is this piece here, this upper lining, okay? So we have 2 of these, and remember that you can do whatever you want with this bag as far as pockets. So this is like a little sunglasses pocket that I show you how to do in the original video. We will link that below so that you can go ahead and make sure you go to that full tutorial if you want to see every step of making the bag. But in the original bag, I think I had the zipper pocket on one of the exterior open areas, where in this time I'm putting the zipper pocket inside the zipper section. You can do whatever. This is your bag. You can customize these pockets however you want. And that's what makes it so great. That's why we sew. Okay, so we are going to do the gusset together. So I've got my zipper, and I have the lining and the main part of the gusset, okay, the exterior. I did put my my purse feet on. So those are on. I've decided I'm going to use 2 zipper pulls on this. The pattern calls for 1, but I'm going to have them going in opposing sections so that I can take and open up the bag this way and then of course close it. So if you'd like to do that, you can certainly add that second zipper pull and have them together on that. The lining gusset, of course, has nothing on it. It's got woven fuse too, but there's nothing else that you need to do with that. So we will put the gusset together, and then we're also going to put, like I said, this other exterior piece together. You have one exterior, well, you have 2, but I already put one together, the exterior piece, and there's no interfacing or no stabilizer, nothing on this piece, okay? You want it to be soft and kind of flexible. So, an ostrich might not do great with this, only because it's a little stiffer and a little thicker. You want something a little thinner and something that's got some drape. And then we have our upper lining, and of course I put my magnetic snaps on the upper lining. One thing I do want to point out is on this upper lining piece, the stabilizer doesn't go all the way to the end. And the reason why is because these ends here, they kind of curve in, and we want to make sure that it curves without any problem so that stabilizer does not go all the way to the end. And then of course we have our lining piece for that. So essentially we have 6 lining pieces. We have 2 lining pieces for the interior where the zippers are. Then we have 2 lining pieces for one of the large open ends. And then we have 2 lining pieces for one of the other large open ends. So we've got a lot of lining in here. Very little stabilizer. The only stabilizer you're going to use is on your upper linings, which is just a tiny, little bit, and then on the bottom, and like the gusset, and that's it. There's no other stabilizer at all. And then of course you want to put woven fuse 2 or some kind of SF101 woven interfacing on all of your lining pieces. And I probably would not recommend you use waterproof canvas for this either, because again, you want the bag to be able to, those curves, to be able to curve real well without having any problems. So we are going to start by putting this other exterior section together. Then we'll go ahead and do the gusset, and then we're going to put it all together, and then we're going to put that binding on. But it'll be fine. All right, let's get going. And we're going to start by putting this exterior piece together. the kind of exterior and the lining at the same time. So we're going to take our upper lining piece and we're going to find the center, which I've already done. Just fold that in half to find it. I'm also going to find the center of my lining piece. Now, one thing I told you is you can customize this bag however you want with pockets, but I do not recommend putting a pocket on this lining piece because this piece is going to go on the back of your exterior piece. And if you have a pocket here, it's going to cause, I think, I haven't tried it, but I think it's going to cause this exterior to kind of be funny. Like it's not going to lay nicely, especially if you have something in the pocket. I think it's going to bulge out. So this is the only lining piece, this one of course on the other side, that I would recommend you don't put a pocket on. So we're going to put these right sides together. Now this is funky, as you can see. Let me move this out of the way. It is, you have got angles going in the opposite direction of each other. It's actually not as difficult to sew as you might think it is, because once you put a couple of clips here in the center, you're just going to take the end and line it up with the end of the lining, just like that. Go ahead and put a couple clips, and you see it kind of automatically does its thing. It automatically works out. Okay, and see in the back how it just, the curve is, even though this curve is kind of severe, this curve over here is not as severe. It's kind of subtle, and it just, it all works out. That's a good thing. Sometimes we don't need to know why. We just need to know it works. Oops. Okay, so you're going to see this is going to want to bubble up like this, and that's okay. That's just again because the curve is taking, since we're taking this line here that was curved and now we're making it straight, the curve's got to go to the other side. Okay, we are going to stitch using a 1/2 inch seam allowance. Again, do not, as I always say, do not stitch on your Decaville or your stabilizer. You always want to stitch near it, and if you're not sure where to put it, mark your seam allowance. I do that a lot. But we're going to go ahead and stitch, and then we'll top stitch. Now, because we do have a curve, we want to go ahead and cut some notches into this seam that we just sewed, into the seam allowance. If you have some good pinking shears, you can do that. Just go ahead and use the pinking shears and you will be fine. I'm going to turn this over so you can see this better. What I'm going to do is just do a few triangles. Go ahead and cut those out. And it's just going to give the fabric a place to go when you turn this right side out. And since we don't really have as much of a curve down here in this section, I'm just going to put little notches. Okay. My sewing space is always so decorative on the floor when I'm done with these little triangles. I've got stuff everywhere. It's part of the fun. Okay, we want to make sure that the seam allowance stays up towards the upper lining. And we're going to fold this over. And we're going to top stitch. from here, you're going to take your main piece and you're going to put it right sides together with the lining. I'm going to go ahead and clip it. And then we're going to stitch. Now, when we stitch this, we're just going to stitch this upper seam first. Okay, so you're just going to stitch from here all the way over to this side and then stop. So once again, we have a curve, so we need to go ahead and put some notches in. And then the other thing I'm going to do is I am going to just trim this back a bit after I put my notches in. It's usually easier, at least for me, it's easier to do that afterwards. Okay. So now that we have made a true mess, we're going to turn this. So of course we're just turning it right along this upper edge. And the best part about doing a binding, right, there's got to be some upside to it, and that is that you get to top stitch your bag now, like right almost in the first step. So there's no funky top stitching or hard top stitching, or, you know, it's hard if you don't have a cylinder or machine sometimes to get that done and get it done right. So we're going to take advantage of that and top stitch right now. So let me go ahead and get this pulled over, some clips in. And I'm just making sure that this is all the way up to the top. You can go ahead and clip all the way down. We are going to base this closed. Now, if you have a bag tag that you want to put on here, whether you want to put it down here at the bottom or up here at the top, make sure you put that on before you base this closed. I put it on the other side of mine, so I already have mine on. And if you have a little extra, you know, you can see here, I have a little bit extra at the bottom. Don't worry about it. Just go ahead and stitch. You know, we'll go ahead and close this up and then we'll just trim that off. It's not going to make any difference in your bag if that is not exactly right. Basically what has happened is when I did this seam, I probably didn't do it the exact right measurement, and that just caused the bottom to be off some. But no worries, we'll be fine. So we're going to top stitch and then we're going to baste around the other sides. So now your top stitching is done. Isn't that amazing? The first step would be the easiest bag you ever top stitch. So I'm just going to trim off this little bit of extra that I have here for whatever reason. I'm not going to worry about it. And now we have our exterior panel done. And isn't that nice how that lays so nice and flat? Okay, we're going to put that aside and let's work on our gusset. So for the gusset, you're going to need the zipper. Now this zipper, I give you the measurement in the pattern. It needs to be exactly that measurement because the zipper is part of the gusset. We also have our main gusset, our lining gusset, and then we also have our 2 tab pieces, which are right here. So again, these 2 tab pieces, like I said, this is just like a strap. You put the or strap connector, you put the long sides into the center and top stitch down. Super easy. I'm going to fold it in half. And I am going to baste it right in half. I'm just going to baste it right here at the edge. So I'm putting wrong sides together. I want to take the tab piece and put it right over the zipper teeth and center it over the zipper teeth. We're going to baste that as well. When I say baste, I'm really sewing it on. I'm going ahead and doing the back stitch, the whole thing, just to make sure it does not move. And do the same thing on the other side, so we have a tab on both sides. And you can see the tab is not as wide as the zipper. Okay, that's on purpose. So now what we need to do is take our main gusset. We're going to take our zipper, and it doesn't matter which side you put first, but we're going to put the tab right against this small section right here in the gusset. Okay, you can baste that, or you can go ahead and put the lining right on top of that, sandwich that zipper right in between. So the lining is going against the wrong side of the zipper. The main gusset's going against the right side of the zipper. And we're just going to go ahead and clip that. And then we're going to stitch. So now this is what we have when we put our lining and our gusset wrong sides together. We have our zipper and our tab. Okay. We're going to take the other side of the zipper We're going to lay it flat against this, or I say flat, and we're going to have to pull it to make it fit. We're going to put it on the other side of this gusset. We're going to take our lining, make sure it's not twisted. Put it on the side over here. Go ahead and clip it, and we're going to stitch. So now we can turn this, and to turn it, you're just going to basically turn this right around. You're going to put the wrong side of your gussets together. So the wrong side of the main part of the gusset and the wrong side of the lining are going to go together. And whenever you do this, depending on which side's up, it's not always going to fit properly. And what I mean by that is, it kind of curves up. It's going to sometimes buckle. So just work it until you get it nice and flat. I'm going to put some clips. And we are going to go ahead and sew these two gussets together, wrong sides together. Now, I'm going to show you a little trick. Because what happens a lot of times is when you do this and you sew these gussets together, the fabric travels a little bit. So when you get to the other side of the gusset, it's not lining up. And I'll show you what I mean by that in just a minute. Okay, so I'm going to top stitch across here. I don't want to, once I'm done that, I don't want to go ahead and top stitch this side. I want to top stitch, and then I want to go ahead and stitch this entire side together here first, and then go ahead and top stitch over here. Because if I top stitch here, and then I top stitch here, chances are, I'm going to end up with a bubble somewhere along the way. Okay, we don't want that to happen. So I'm going to just go ahead and start on this side, do a little top stitch. And then when you turn to do this, you're going to have to be careful that your foot does not grab this tab and mess it up, because you're going kind of from an uphill situation downhill. So you want to put something there to protect that surface. And I have a small piece of faux here that I can use. So I'm just going to put that underneath my foot just to make sure I don't mess up my faux. Okay, so now that we're to this side, we can go ahead and stitch across. We just want to make sure that all this fabric from the gusset, the upper lining or the upper piece, is all the way against this here before we top stitch. Okay, now we're going to go in the other direction. I'm going to put my protection there. All right. So now we have our gusset completed. All right, what I want to do is find the center because this is going to be important. So I'm going to match this seam here. I'm going to find the center of the bottom, which I already had marked. I'm just going to remark it one more time. I had it marked when I found my feet, where to put my center foot, I should say. And then mark this side. And then you also want to mark your zipper. You want to make sure you know where the center of your zipper is. Now you just want to put a tiny little notch, or you can use a fabric pen if you prefer. Okay, just enough to know where that is. All right, so now we're going to work on putting the bag together. So we're going to start by measuring little 1/4 inch boxes, little 1/2 inch boxes in the corner of our main piece that we just did. So I'm just going to go down here, and it is an angle, right? This is an angle. This is straight. This is an angle. It is okay. Just do your 1/4 inch straight up, and then go across. This will end up being, this line here will end up being about 1/2 inch, but that's okay. You just want to come up the straight. I'm sorry, I keep saying 1/4 inch, 1/2 inch. You're coming up a 1/2 inch, and you're coming over a 1/2 inch. But this 1/2 inch line is going to be slightly longer because you have an angle here. Okay, we're going to do it one more time. See if I can say it right this time. Come up a 1/2 inch, and then come straight over. This is going to be more like 5/8 than a 1/2. That's okay. All right. From there, I'm going to mark my other piece too while I'm at it. So come up 1/2. Over. All right, from here, we're going to find the center of the bottom. I'm going to put one entire side together first, and then we'll do the other side. So go ahead and just make a little snip so you know where the bottom is. So right sides together, we're going to match up our centers. I'm going to go ahead and clip. Now for this step, we're using a scant 1/4 inch seam allowance. Do not use the full 1/2 inch yet. Okay, I'm going to flip this so that I can see. You can kind of maneuver this so that it works for you. We are going to stitch, we're going to stitch a 1/4 inch, not a 1/2 inch. So don't start right there at that intersecting line. You're going to start below it. But we're going to start at the line. And we're going to stitch a 1/4 inch seam allowance. We're going to come all the way down to the other side, and we're going to stop at the 1/4 inch, or at this line as well. Again, we're not stitching from intersecting point to intersecting point. We're doing a lesser seam allowance because we're going to sew again, and we don't want to end up in the same holes over and over, and we don't want to see our stitches. All right, so starting there, doing the 1/4 inch seam allowance. Even though it's marked a full 1/2 inch. Okay, so I'm going to make sure I stop at the line here and do a little back stitch. So you will see here that I stitched starting right there at that line. Okay, and I went all the way to the other line. Did not start at the point, but started halfway between that, because this goes up a 1/2 inch. We only did a 1/4 inch seam allowance. Now we want to cut our gusset, not our main part of our bag, but the gusset right there at that line, and we're going to go up the full 1/2 inch. So just take your scissors, move the main part of your bag over, and you're going to cut up the 1/2 inch. Don't cut over 1/2 inch, you're just going to cut up to the 1/2 inch. Okay? And of course, just like always, you're better to have a little less of a cut than more of a cut. Okay, so now we are going to be able to turn our gusset. So without making that clip, we would not be able to make this turn. Okay? So we're going to go ahead and turn and come up the side. Now, as you come up the side, your gusset folds in. So you're going to actually take your main part of your bag and follow your gusset. So you're just going to go ahead and fold that main part of the bag in, let it follow that curve. And when you get to where your zipper is, your tab is here. You're going to try not to stitch actually on your tab, and you're going to pick up and start stitching on your zipper. And this is where it can get a little tricky. And then the zipper should go up to the top of the bag by about 3 1/4 inches. Okay, so I'm going to just do a quick little measurement there. And that is right at about 3 1/4 inches. Might be a little bit more, but that's okay. All right, we're going to do the same thing on this side. We're going to go ahead and turn, clip, gusset, and then right here where the gusset starts making that turn, we're going to take the main part of the bag, bring it down to meet the gusset. Push our tab out of the way, bring our zipper down there, and come on up. Okay, and that should, if you can kind of fold this in and you can see, it should be about the same. And then the middle of our zippers here. Okay, so the zipper is about the same distance on both sides. And when I take that seam allowance, or that seam right here, and push that together, I can see that the main part of the bag matches up, and then the zipper is right where that we marked that center. Okay, so now we're going to go ahead and stitch up the side of the gusset all the way to this point on the zipper. And again, we're just using a 1/4 inch seam allowance. I'm going to kind of push that tab out of the way. And I am going to do a little back stitch up here at the end of the zipper. Okay, we're going to do the same thing on this side. Only this time I'm going to start up here at the zipper, but that's okay. And that's measurement is about the same on both sides. So I'm going to do a little back stitch. When I get down to this point, I'm going to take and fold my tab out of the way and then stitch the zipper and then head on over to the gusset. Okay, so this is what we have. Looks kind of funky. But essentially that's the shape of our bag. And these are going to curve in, these little sides right here. Okay, see how they're curving? That's going to happen. And then the top of our bag is going to be here. So now we're going to take one of our lining pieces that has the upper lining on there. And we want to take some 1/8 of an inch double-sided tape. And we're going to place it right along the top of this curve. Now you're probably going to have to make little notches in your tape to get it around this curve. That's okay, you can certainly do that. Okay, and we're basically just putting it on the upper lining here. So we're going to take the main part of our bag here that we just put together. Go ahead and flip your zipper so that it is going to the inside. And we're going to take this lining piece, what basically is we're going to do is put it on here and connect it to the zipper. So let's go ahead and find the center. Here at the top, find the center at the bottom. And it really doesn't matter which lining piece you grab. You know, it's just whichever one you prefer. So I'm going to unzip the zipper some. That helps. And you may want to kind of experiment with zipping and unzipping and just doing whatever, you know, whatever you need to get that to work for you. But you want to make sure if you unzip it, you're grabbing the correct side. Okay, so it's going to be this upper side here. We're going to peel the backing off the tape. And we're going to match up our center notch with our center notch on our zipper. Okay, and we're going to bring it around. Now, your zipper's straight, and this is a curve. You're going to have to clip your zipper. And you don't have to clip it a lot, just make little snips in it. And once you snip it, you can go ahead and burn it if you're afraid it's going to come apart. Okay, I'm just going to put a couple of tiny little snips right where the curve starts. I'm going to go right around this curve. And you're going to have to put some snips in the side of the bag. This is the exterior because we need to get around that curve. Okay. You can even put a couple of clips on there to help hold it. Okay, and then we're going to clip all the way down, and your edges or your bottom should match up. So we're going to do the same thing over here. Go ahead and just put a couple of little snips in the zipper. And then put some snips. This is in the main part of the bag where the zipper is attached. So we can get around that curve. And put a couple clips. And then the bottom of the bag should match up. Okay, and once you have all that clipped, you can go ahead and clip your bottom. And my centers are matching up perfectly down here. Now, I will say that these layers get to be a lot, and so you really do probably need an industrial machine for this. I think even if you did it all in a cotton canvas, it would be challenging unless you had a semi-industrial or a super strong, like a Bernina, one of the really high-end Berninas. You could probably do well with this. Okay, so we're going to stitch. Now, I'm going to stitch from this side. I'm going to take this kind of bulk here and just kind of fold it down on itself, okay? Get it out of my way. It doesn't really matter where you start. I'm going to start down here in this corner, and we are going to start stitching. Now at this point, we're doing a little bit more than a 1/4 inch, but not the full 1/2 inch quite yet. So I'm approaching this place where my tab is. I also have my zipper pull there, so I'm going to pull my zipper pull out of the way. Go ahead and fold that tab piece out of the way. And I'm going to have to straighten out my main fabric just a bit because it is part of this curve and I don't want there to be any tucks. Okay, so now I'm back to just stitching the zipper onto the main lining piece. Go ahead and unzip the zipper. Getting to the other side where the main part of the bag is, so I'm going to kind of lay that out so that I can Make sure there's no tucks. Okay, I'm getting to the part where my tab is. My zipper pull is there, so I'm going to pull that out of the way. And I'm going to pull my tab back and go ahead and stitch. Stitch across the bottom. Okay, so we have that layer on. So now what we have is kind of that first opening. Okay, here's where the zipper is. When we flip this around, it'll be the main part of our bag. Okay, we'll do that again in a minute. And so now what we need to do is put the other lining layer on. And to do that, we don't want to have to have binding up here where our zipper is. I mean, we could, but don't really want to. So I'm going to zip my zippers together. Flip this over. So what we're going to do is basically where the curve is, where the upper lining is. We're going to start here. We're going to come all the way across and we're going to stitch the other side of this lining on right sides together. Then we're going to flip it, and then we're going to go ahead and sew the rest on. That's where the binding is going to go. Okay, so I already have my center marked here. I have my center of my zipper marked. So we're going over the same seam that we did just a minute ago. You can certainly put some double-sided tape on here, which I'm going to do. The double-sided tape is really going to help as you try to sew these curves. So you kind of need both the double-sided tape and clips to help you through it. Or at least I do. Okay, so put this on. All right. So let's peel the backing off the tape. And let's start. Again, we're going to do right sides together. So this here is the right side where we see our main part of our bag. Of course, lining goes against that. Go ahead and clip, or not clip, but stick that on there. Now we have a curve and a curve, so you should not have to clip anything, or snip, I should say. And we want to come right down. You have to kind of smush this down. You want to come right down to where our gusset begins, essentially. That's where we're aiming to sew to. So let me turn this so I can try to get that stuck down. Okay, so we're going to do the same thing over here. Go ahead and stick that down on the zipper, swish your bag down. That's the reason why you really need a fabric that's got some give and drape. We're going to go right about to where the gusset begins. And I am going to throw some clips on here just to kind of make sure everything is staying in place. Okay. Now, the thing that's going to be a little difficult here is these curves. So I have my zipper zipped up right now, and let me just kind of feel in there and see. I just want to make sure that it's not going to buckle and it's going to stay nice and flat. So I'm going to start over here. I'm going to have the lining up so that I can kind of reach in here easily and flatten out the zipper if I need to. Now, if you need to do a pass, just to kind of get it on and then check it out, and you might have a couple places that you have to take a little bit deeper seam allowance, that's fine. I just want to try again to make sure that I'm starting here at the gusset. Okay, so I'm going to reach in here and just kind of make sure that all this is laying flat. You've got the front here that's attached. That's kind of going to give you a little bit of a problem. And then you have the zipper on this curve. So you might have to kind of cheat a little bit and pull this back and just check it out and make sure it all looks okay in there. Because the zipper is going to want to come up. So what I'm going to do is stitch up a little bit and then move my zipper pull down, and that will help the zipper lay flat. This is the tricky part. All right. I'm going to stop right there and see if I can move that zipper pull down. Get it around the curve. And if you can't, take it out, take your needle out. Go ahead and move it down. Okay, so now it's down at the edge here. And now I can deal with this curve a little bit better. That zipper lay nice and flat. And we are trying to do a 1/4 inch seam allowance now right along the edge of the zipper. Make sure it's lying flat. Okay, then I'm going to come on down. Now I'm coming right to the other zipper pull. So I'm actually going to open that up, bring it around this curve and bring it to the beginning, and then I can move it after I'm done sewing the curve. Well, I think I can. There we go. So this curve right here is probably the trickiest spot. I'm just reaching in here to make sure that that zipper is laying nice and flat. Okay, I'm going to try to come down a little bit more, and then I'm going to move the zipper pull. I'm probably going to have to take it out of the machine to do that. Okay, lay that back down. And basically, the further down that you can come to your gusset, as far, you know, the better off you're going to be, because you're not going to have to put as much binding on. So you want to try to get as far down as you can. Move my tab out of the way. All right, let's see how we did. I'm going to make a little clip right here where my stitching ends. I'm going through a lot of layers, so because we want this end to stick out for our binding. Okay. All right, so let's turn this around and let's see what we got. Okay, and that looks really good. We want to top stitch, but we don't want to top stitch the whole way, because you can see here how this bag is curving in. So we don't want to top stitch beyond that. We're just going to start right where the curve starts right here, and we're going to top stitch all the way to where the curve ends over here. So go ahead and lay the bag flat. Go ahead and pull your lining down out of the way. And actually, if you'd like, you could almost go ahead, let's do that. Let's go ahead and stitch the bottom of the lining first. That'll help keep it out of the way. So see how this is open right now? We made that little clip, so we're going to turn that clip all the way out, and then we're going to put the lining wrong sides together. And go ahead and put some wonder clips. And then clip along the bottom. And then we can stitch this. So now we're looking at how many layers down here. We have lining and interfacing. We have another lining and interfacing. We have the lining for the main part of the bag. Then we have the main part of the bag. Then we have the gusset. Then we have the gusset lining. So you can see why you need a really powerful machine to do this. But the results are amazing. Okay, so that's going to be what that lining looks like. So we want to stitch from the gusset. I'm just going to turn this over and kind of push all this in. And we're just going to stitch right here. And now at this point, we want to take the biggest seam allowance we can. So it's going to be, we can see where our stitches start here. We're not going to be able to really get much closer than that, but we're going to do that. And then we're going to make sure we stitch just to the left of this going all the way down. We want to get right to the point now with our little box here. We want to stitch right to that point, and then we want to turn and stitch across, and we'll be doing our 1/2 inch seam allowance at this point. And actually I have a lot of bulk right there. Let me see if I can kind of pull that out of the way. So I'm going right to that point in the gusset. I'm going to turn, I'm going to take this part of the gusset and just fold it over in the other direction. So you can see how the gusset is folded back this way. We're going to stitch right to that point. We're going to turn, and then we're going to just take this whole thing and shift it in the other direction. Looks amazing. So let's go ahead and top stitch now. Now that we know that lining is pulled down nice. And again, I'm just going to top stitch from this point here where the main part of the bag comes into the zipper to the other side. You want to make sure that your foot does not mess up any kind of faux or anything back here. I am going to do a little bit of a back stitch. So here is one side of our bag completed, and when we turn this gusset around, we'll have the other side. Now we want to go ahead and put the binding. You can wait or you can do it however you want to do it. I'm going to go ahead and put it on now. And the main thing that I want to make sure of is that all my layers are even, and you can see they're not, and that's normal. I mean, you can't really get them all exactly even. It's just kind of hard. So I'm going to cut back what I need to. Okay. See, I got some extra right here. Okay. Now, the secret weapon of binding, in my opinion, is to use black. Use black with black thread on any color lining, and it's going to hide. You're not going to be able to see it. If you have to go back and do another round of stitching on your binding, you're just not going to see it because it's black on black. I'm just going to cut a piece of this. Now this is the binding. I just get this on Amazon. Mandala Crafts. It's 1/2 inch width, 55 yards, and I mean, it's very inexpensive. Just going to do kind of a rough measurement. I'm sure in the pattern I give you an amount. Now, you want to make sure you leave yourself extra because we are going to be folding this over so that you don't see a raw edge here. Okay, so Give yourself, you know, about a couple inches extra. You don't really need a couple inches, but we're gonna just make sure we have enough. All right, I'm gonna cut it right about here. And basically what we want to do is, you know, you could do this a couple of different ways. I'm just going to kind of fold this over. You can press this if you want to, but essentially we're just going to fold it right around our bag here. Now, if you go to do this and it is not covering your stitches, you're going to have to cut your seam allowance back a little bit more. We want to make sure that the top, this fold, is covering up here, this part. So I'm going to go a little bit beyond that. And I am going to, when I'm done, just take a couple little hand stitches to stitch that top closed. You don't have to. And I'm going to clip this. Now, there are many different ways to put binding on. You can first stitch around one side, then fold the other side over. That works really well. You can just do a kind of a sandwich like what I'm doing right here. You could hand stitch the binding on. I mean, really, when you get right down to it, the hand stitching is probably going to look the best if you really want it to look perfect. The thing about binding on the inside of a bag is it's kind of like if you sew a shirt and your underarm seams don't match. Nobody's gonna know. I mean, if they know, it's because they are way too close to you, right? So binding, I mean, overall, binding does kind of suck, right? Binding's hard. Binding's not the easiest thing in the world, but nobody is really going to see it. Well, especially once they have all of their stuff in their purse, they are just not gonna see it. And I can see here, I can see my stitching a little bit. I'm just going to have to cut that seam allowance back a little bit more. All right. Let's see if that did the trick. And because this is bias binding, it should go around curves pretty easily. And I am clipping it. I'm not being, I'm not putting a ton of clips because as I sew this, I am going to kind of unclip and pull it a little bit to give it a nice tight fit. I'm also going to be wanting to make sure that it catches on both sides. And then again, like I said, if it doesn't, I can just go back and restitch and nobody can tell because it'll be black. Okay, so we're just going to kind of go around this curve. The curve, sometimes you need to do a little extra stitching or folding over. Okay, and I actually have a lot extra on this side. And this is kind of the side I want to start on. So I'm going to go ahead and just cut this back. I'm going to leave myself, I guess I could cut that back a little bit more. All right, I'm going to open this up, fold it over, making sure that the top fold is over the edge of this side, this edge here. Okay, there we go. So when I go to stitch, I am going to back stitch, but I'm going to leave my threads long so that I can then use that thread to pull through and just close the top of that with the needle and thread. Okay, so let me go ahead and pull out a little extra here. And you see I'm going to kind of pull this off, pull this down, making sure that it's pulled nice and tight and goes all the way around. Alright, so we're going to go around this curve. And you can certainly use an awl, that helps. Especially in these curves. Just take your time and make sure it's reaching on both sides. Right in here, it doesn't want to curve around this edge. Let's see. Probably should have cut this seam allowance back just a little bit. Alright, so right here I'm going to do the same thing, leave my tails nice and long so that I'll be able to just take a little hand stitch to stitch that top right there. So what I want to do is look and see, looks like I caught the bottom really well, but not the side. So I'm just going to go back and sew this side. I'm going to sew it from this side so I can see it. So I had cut my bottom seam allowance down, but I didn't cut my sides. I knew this side right here was having a little bit of a tough go of it. So I probably should have cut those back a little bit too. All right, so I'm not taking anything apart. I'm just going to start up here. Okay, I'm gonna leave those long. I have a little spot right there. You can see the thread from underneath. I'm not too worried. People aren't, I mean, if somebody wants to open up the zipper part of the inside, you know, and check out my binding abilities, they can do it. It is one of those things. It is all right. I'm not going to worry about it. Okay, so I am going to cut back those side seam allowances next time before when I do the other side. But look at, I mean, that side looks great. And once you take and you turn this around, these little areas like that, you're not even going to be able to see. Okay, I am going to take a hand needle and I am going to go ahead and just close up these edges. Now, again, you don't have to do this, but I'm just going to take one of these threads and just do a quick little whip stitch to stitch this closed. Well, if I can get the edge to come through here. There we go. All right, and that's all it needs. It's just a couple little, you can cut your threads. And there you go. So I'll do the same thing over here. Just go ahead and then cut all my threads. All right. And there we go. So to kind of give you an idea of where we're at, if I turn this, I'm just turning this gusset out. So essentially we have half the bag done, okay? We would open up this zipper, we'll see the inside, and that's one half completed, okay? So we are going to repeat this entire process for the other side. So I'm going to flip this back around. And of course we have this side to contend with, so we're just going to have to shove this on the inside here, kind of let it fold in on itself, because essentially we're starting as if we just had the gusset, just this gusset right here. So I'm going to find the center of my bottom. Make sure my marks are still there, and they are. We're going to put right sides together. We're going to stitch at this point 1/4 of an inch between mark to mark. Okay. And you've got some stuff to contend with here, but what I'm going to do is I'm just going to lay this flat. Okay, so get that out of the way. Just kind of lay it as flat as possible here. Start at that line and then stitch to the other line. And again, we're using a 1/4 inch seam allowance at this point. All right, we're going to make our little snips in the main part of our bag. Doing it right at that mark, right basically where our stitches end. And then we're going to turn and clip this together. Of course, we have our tab here, so we're going to want to make sure that's out of the way when we stitch over to where the zipper is. And this front piece is going to end up about 3 1/4 inches on the zipper. And it is easier at this point if you unzip the zipper. But again, you're going to need to get in here too, so you can't really unzip it too far, because you're going to have to sew right here, and if you move the pole there, it's not really going to do you any good, right? So just going to have to really pull the zipper over. Okay, do the same thing over here. All right, we're going to go ahead and stitch this on, these sides. You see how I actually had to pull this bag up to get that to work because that is a curve and we had to stitch around the curve. Alright, so for this side, we need to start at that curve. So I'm just going to go ahead and pull this all the way up and make it stay where I want it. So you see, you got to kind of manhandle it, to say the least. But again, the reason why you don't want to use a super thick fabric here. So now that we have that section on, we need to go ahead and get our lining section with the upper lining on it. I'm going to put some double-sided tape. All right. So we want to put that on this side here. We can do right sides together. So we had looking at the right side of our zipper. All right. So with that right side of the zipper, we're going to take the right side of this lining, which I forgot to mark. Let me go ahead and mark that real quick. Okay, and we're going to stick that together. Alright, so got a lot of bag to contend with here. We're going to take this part of the bag and we're going to shove it inside on itself because we want to connect this down to this section. Okay. So sometimes the easiest way to do this is to stand this up. You can see here's the curve we need to go around. I'm going to make some snips, tiny little snips in the zipper, and then in the open that up. And this is where you really need to play with the zippers being open and closed and seeing what works best. And you may have to take your needle out several times when you sew just to get it figured out, and that is okay. And let's see, push that down. I'm going to throw some clips on here on this corner. We're going to do the same thing on this side. And you can see here how that zipper is pulling. I mean, that's what you need to relieve right there. Because otherwise it's just not going to lay flat and do what you need it to do. It's going to be more difficult to sew. So see already how much flatter that's laying? And this side isn't quite matching down here, so I have something off a little bit. Let me go ahead and readjust. Clip this first. Take some patience. I think that's fair to say. But I promise if you do this bag, first time you do it might be a little rough, but the more you do it, the better you're going to get at it, and you're going to learn a lot. So, again, I highly suggest you give it a whirl. Okay, so I want to go ahead and sew this on. I'm going to start down here in the corner, come up and around, go all the way around, okay? And again, we're not quite doing the full 1/2 inch seam allowance yet. Zipper pull that I need to go ahead and close. So I'm going to remove this from the machine. Go ahead and close it. I'm going to make sure that my tab is out of the way. Okay, so now we have the last lining piece to put on. So I'm going to go ahead and I already had marked my centers. We want to put this on right sides together first so that we can make sure we get a nice clean zipper like this side. So I'm going to put some double-sided tape along the top. And this is the one that we want to basically sew on from gusset to gusset. Okay, so right sides together, so it's going to be this here, okay, this side here. We're going to go ahead and put this on. I'm going to use clips as well. And because we have a curve and a curve, we don't really need to clip anything. And see, we got a lot of bulk right here. We want this to lay nice and flat. So I'm going to worry about this side first. This is, I can feel the zipper feels like it's laying pretty flat in here right now. So what I'm going to do is just go ahead and stitch right where the gusset begins here. And I'm just going to stitch up to about this point and stop. And then just kind of take a look and make sure everything looks okay before I continue on the other side. And then I'll move my zipper pulls and do all that. Just going to reach in here and try to pull some of this bulk out of the way. As much and as best as I can. zipper pull is right there. Let me try to move it out of the way. I had it out of the way. Yep, it's not going to work, so let me reach in here and get that out of the way. There we go. Okay. So now I'm going to continue on. And I'm just going to go to about the midpoint. I'm going to just kind of take a little peek, make sure everything looks okay. And it looks like I need to get just a little bit closer on this corner. So I am going to work on that. I'm not going to take anything apart. All I'm going to do is I can see where my stitches are. I'm just going to get a little bit closer right in here. So now I'm going to move the zipper pulls over to the other side where I've already sewn. And once they're both over there, you can see how nice and flat this is laying right here. That's good. That's what I want. I'm going to go ahead and clip and stick this down right around that curve. I know it's flat. I'm just going to try to push the bulk down as much as possible. And when I get to this point, I'm really going to have to pull this lining over so that I can stitch all the way to my gusset. So I'm going to pick up where I left off in the middle. I'm going to go ahead and pull this lining over and stitch all the way to the gusset. All right, I think we have got it made. So I'm going to put a couple of snips in here. And then remember, we also want to snip right where our stitches end here. All right. Then we're going to turn. Go ahead and open this up. All right, looking good. So we'll go ahead and take that seam, put it out, take the rest of the lining, match it, and we're home free. We're almost done. And I just remembered my key fob. So, where did it go? There it is. You can do a couple things with this. You can certainly just go ahead and put it, you know, on the inside here. This will be on the inside of the zipper section. If you want it on the inside of one of these other sections, you could just go ahead and rivet it on, which I might do. I might just kind of choose a place and rivet it on. The rivet will go through the lining to the other side, but that's not a big deal to me. I think that would be fine. So instead of trying to sew it in a seam, that's what I'm going to do. All right, I'm going to go ahead and stitch this last seam all the way around. We'll put our binding on. Then we will have handles and be done. And again, this is the seam that we're doing the full 1/2 inch seam allowance. So that I don't make the same mistake as before, I am going to cut back I'm not going to cut it back so much up here, but I am going to cut back these side seam allowances just a bit. And I'm just going to kind of veer off up here. I do have a little bit here I want to get even. Okay, so let's get our binding. Just going to kind of do a rough measurement here. ahead and clip it on. And you saw that I did some unclipping as I stitched the other side on. I'm going to do the same thing here, just kind of roughly put this around. You throw just a few clips on. Okay, and then we'll have lots to end up on. Actually, that's where we're going to start. We did the same things last time. All right, so let's go ahead and clip some of this off. Let's probably clip a little more. Okay, I'm going to leave nice long tails here so I can take my little final stitches, clip on there. All right, we'll stitch this on. This side seems to be going a lot smoother just because I think I cut those seam allowances back just right. We'll see when I turn it around though if I caught the other side. So this side looks really good. This side still missing a few areas here. So I'm going to go ahead and stitch those. My corner here didn't get stitched down. I'm going to do a couple stitches right in the corner just to hold that down. For some reason my sides didn't catch very well. The bottom did really good on both ends, but those sides are a little pesky. Got some extra threads here. Let me clip these. Not sure where they came from. Okay. out of bobbin. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and replace my bobbin. I'm gonna re-stitch this right here and then go ahead and close my ends. And then we'll come back, put the handles on. For the big reveal, we need to top stitch this last section of zipper. So I'm gonna flip it over so that the zipper's on the bottom. And again, we're going to stitch right from where the main part of the bag comes in. We're going to stitch across all the way to where the other main part of the bag attaches, okay? And we're going to have to just kind of get as close as we can over here. I'm going to pull this out and try to lay it as flat as possible. To get, see if I can do this, to get in here, okay? And just get as close as you can. And try to pull this back, but I don't want to mess up that faux either with my back of my foot. So what I'm going to do is put a little piece back here to protect it. And that is top stitched. So I'm going to move the camera. We're going to do the big reveal and then we'll mark for the handles. Once you flip it, this is what you have. It is amazing to me how this bag comes together because you look at it, it's inside out, looks like a great big glob of fabric, and then you turn it and you have this amazing looking bag. So slim, you would never guess that it is as big as it is. Okay, for the handles, the main thing you need to remember is that the handles do not go on straight up and down. They go on at an angle. The pattern piece for your upper lining has the markings for your handles on it. Now, you can mark it before you start making the bag, but what I have found is that the markings come off. I mean, it doesn't matter if you do a silver marking pen, if you do it with it doesn't matter, it always comes off. So all I'm going to do is kind of match my magnetic snaps together here, fold this in half, and that's going to give me a rough idea of where the center is. Just kind of put a little pinch in it. And I'm going to mark the center of the piece up with the center of the bag. And I'm just going to clip it on. Now remember, we have a seam allowance on this piece, this pattern piece, but not on the bag. We already took that seam allowance away. So I am going to just bring this up a tad and clip it on. Doesn't have to be exact. What you want to do is before you punch any holes, you're going to want to take a look at the handles and make sure they look okay to you. The markings are correct, okay? You're not going to have a problem with the markings if you follow the markings being off. But you might want your handles at more of an angle or less of an angle or whatever. So I always recommend you check it out before you start punching holes. Okay, so this is up some seam allowance. You can see on the back here how I just have it clipped on so I can see where the holes are going to go. I'm going to take a silver marking pen and I'm going to lay this flat and I'm going to mark those holes. Okay, so all I'm doing is laying the bag flat and through the pattern piece, marking the holes. And I'm going to take it off, make sure I can see where they're going. And then when you pull this up and take a look at it, you should see some silver marking pen holes there. You're going to take your handles, use the pattern piece to mark the handles as well. So obviously, you know, you're looking at two different kind of pattern pieces. But if you take your handle and you lay it on the pattern piece, lining it up like this, I can see the handle through the paper in the back, so I know it's centered. I don't know if you can see that, but it is. And I'm just going to do the same thing and mark the holes. And I'm showing you this straight on because you know how to mark holes as far as, you know, marking it through. But I wanted to show you how I marked it in Core Lane, because you want to make sure that your holes in your straps or your handles are the same spot, the same distance as your bag. Okay, so now I have these marked. I'm going to go ahead and punch the handle in the hole first, or the holes in the handle first. Is that backwards? Make sure I've got it big enough. All right. I'm going to fold the handle over and I'm going to make sure that the holes are the same distance on both sides. So using the same holes, again, I'm using my silver marking pen to mark through, and then I'm going to go ahead and punch those holes. Okay, when I lay these down and line them up, and granted I'm doing this in the back instead of the front, it's going to go on the front, but I just want to make sure that I like the angle of the handle. So what I'm doing is in the back here, I'm looking at the angle of the handle to make sure that I like the way it looks and that I don't want to change it at all. And basically it is going about like this. Okay. Let's see, it's going at this angle here. It's going out. I'm fine with it. I mean, I know that my holes are okay, so I'm going to take my hole punch. I'm punching all the way through now. And my whole point with all that is just make sure you take a look at things before you just start punching. Make sure you like the way it looks. Okay, and I'm just punching all the way through the bag. Got one more. Okay, so I'm just punching right here through the bag. All right, so let me get my rivets. We're going to put the rivets in the handle. And through the holes in the bag. Need to see them. Okay, put the backs on these. All right. So that's what that's going to look like. Okay, from the outside, it's going to look like from the inside. You can see rivets right there by your magnets. I think they all look good. The rivets seem to be definitely okay size. I'm going to go down a size because this faux is really thin, and I'm thinking I might get away with a smaller size. Let me see. I want to be careful with that. Yeah, that snaps on good. I could do a smaller size. So instead of doing the 12mm rivets, I'm going to be able to do 10 with this faux. It's going to depend on the fabrics you use as to what size. So a lot of times, people ask me what size rivets you use. It's like, well, what size, how thick is your faux? It's going to depend on that. It's going to depend on your fabrics. Okay. Now, the other thing is that I'm going to look at it before I decide for sure and make sure that I like the smaller rivets. Because there's definitely a difference. Okay, you can see these here are the larger ones, these here are the smaller ones. And I think I like the smaller ones better. So I'm going to go ahead and replace these here with the smaller ones. I'm going to put the handle on the back, and then we're going to take a look at the completed bag. The Compton. This really is an amazing bag. I know that there is, some challenges to it, but if you give it a whirl, I think you're really going to find that you learn a lot with it. The hardest part was the curves, right? When we were trying to sew the zipper onto the curved lining. And then the binding really wasn't that bad. I mean, you saw I went around, skipped some, went around the other side, and it was done. Nobody is going to be looking in there. Even if it was my bag, I wouldn't even notice it. I mean, it's just not something you look at. It's on the inside of the zipper section, so it's not like it's right. It's not even like it's, in this part here where you see it all the time. It's in the zipper section. Like way in there in the corners, okay? So don't fret about binding. Binding is just one of those things, it's just one of those things. Let's just leave it at that. Okay, I like the double zippers I put on there. I did add my key fob. Let me see if I can show you this. I just riveted it on right here. Okay, there it is. And you can see I just added a rivet right there. I went all the way through to the inside, no problem. I felt like I wanted it there instead of on the inside of the zipper part, because usually if I'm going to reach for keys, I'll not want to have to unzip and all that. It's going to make it a lot easier to have it there. Okay, so great shape to this bag. Love the way that these curves work. You can see it from kind of from the top. Slim yet really big bag. It's got some amazing just features, and I just love it. Okay, so this week You can get the pattern. We get the coupon code below for a discount on it. Even if, you know, it's something that you don't think, yeah, I'm not sure I really want to try it, just give it a try. I think you're going to really enjoy it, and I think that you're going to learn a lot. Always make sure you email me if you have any questions, chris@simplyclassic.net. And until next time, everybody, happy sewing.